Chapter 11, The Wendigo. I was so embarrassed when I saw what "It's Perfectly Normal" was about. I had even asked somebody at the bookstore to help me find it. I could have died. As soon as I saw what it was, I put it back on the shelf really fast and ran away. I mean, there's stuff in there I do have questions about, and Mom and I have already talked about some of it, but I was not going to buy that book with my family right there. Instead, I bought The Egypt Game, which was a novel, and Scary Stories, a bunch of short stories, and read them both that night. Wow, The Egypt Game was great. It's about these kids who build this pretend Egyptian altar in a creepy guy's backyard, and then mysterious things start happening. Like maybe the Egyptian god is leaving them messages. I guess it got banned because somebody didn't like the kids worshiping Egyptian gods, even if it was pretend. And there's somebody attacking kids in the neighborhood too, which is kind of scary. But the book was really awesome. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I read in the dark, in bed, which was a mistake. Oh my gosh, I'm still shaking. There's a story in there called The Red Spot, about a girl who has a spider crawl on her face. That's bad enough. But the spider bites her or something, and it leaves a big red spot on her cheek. Her mom says it'll go away, but it doesn't, and a few days later, it explodes and hundreds of baby spiders come crawling out of her face. And even worse, there are these creepy pictures. I called the dog to come and sit with me in bed while I read it, but even that didn't help. In another story called High Beams, a woman driving a car at night can't figure out why the car behind her keeps flashing its high beams at her. It turns out a killer snuck into the back seat of her car and the other driver saw it, and every time the killer rises up to attack her, the car behind her turns on its high beams to stop him. "Mom, Amy Ann still has her light on and I can't sleep," Alexis called, making me jump. Mom appeared at our door looking tired. "Amy Ann, you know I don't mind you reading, but Alexis needs her sleep, and you do too." I nodded and pulled my blanket up high over me. I was shaking so badly I could barely hold my flashlight. But I still wanted to read another story. I turned to one called The Wendigo. It was about a man and his guide hunting in a part of Canada where nobody else ever goes. One night, the wind starts calling the name of his guide, and something comes swooping down out of the dark and snatches him up and flies away with him. The guide screams something about his feet being on fire, and then he's gone. The hunter splits, but later on, he's by a campfire when a strange man wrapped up in a blanket sits down next to him. The hunter is sure it's his old guide, the man who disappeared that night. The hunter can't see his face, and the strange man won't answer any of his questions. The hunter decides to lift the man's hat off his head, and underneath he sees, "Mom! Amy Ann is reading with her flashlight," Alexis cried, and I screamed and exploded out from under my blanket. Alexis screamed because I'd surprised her, and the dogs went crazy, barking like the mailman had suddenly appeared in the room, and the whole ruckus brought Mom running. "What's going on in here?" she asked. "Nothing," I whispered, hugging Flot and Jet with both arms. Across the room, Alexis stared at me in horror. Mom frowned. "Whatever's going on, I need lights out and for you both to go to sleep." I nodded and Mom left. I clicked my flashlight off and stuffed Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark under my mattress where I couldn't see it. I finally got Flotsam and Jetsam settled back down and pulled my blanket up over my head, but I knew I wasn't getting to sleep that night, or maybe ever again.